So I have a thing that I want to talk to you about, and I want to
Okay,
talk
what
to
do
you
you got?
about this particular thing because you are one of the most successfully social developers that I know.
Oh, okay.
And it is this. In about 3 hours, 3.5 hours, I'm going to be at a quarterly
Oh,
Knoxville developer meetup where it's like all the different developer communities, they all
mhm.
come together once a quarter and they do stuff. They hang out, and I think they're having there's some sort of like hackathon awards going out for this one or something. I don't know, whatever. But it's also just a big social event.
Okay.
And I got to thinking about the fact that okay, so like um I have always been had a bit of a problem being a wallflower at things like this.
It's hard to
Um,
picture.
it's hard to picture because of the context that you've seen me in. You've mostly seen me in the context of like conferences that I'm speaking at,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
that's always been my big hack for being social at conferences, because if you give a talk,
Oh, yeah.
everybody just
Yeah.
comes up to you. They like, as long as it's
Yeah.
something reasonably interesting and compelling, they come up to you and they talk to you about it, and that's like a great way to like completely avoid
Yeah.
any skills for meeting people. And like and like at this point in the Ruby community, like all I have to do is just go to a conference and I can just like stand in the middle of the room and lots of
And
people will come
everybody's
talk to
like,
me because
Avdi, I love you.
right, right. But which is great. It's very convenient. I get to have lots of great conversations and I don't have to work for it. Um, but like this is an interesting opportunity to kind of go back to the other side of that to the start of that process, because pretty much nobody knows me in the Knoxville developer
You
community.
get to pass as
um,
immortal.
yeah, exactly. And like they don't know, like they don't have a most people aren't familiar with me online and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And um and like I want to use this as as an exercise. I want to go with a hook. I don't have business cards and I'm not looking to get hired,
Do you have
but
stickers? Those are
I
better.
don't have stickers.
Why do
I
you not
don't.
have Ruby Tapa stickers?
I know, right? You would think.
I'm ordering pairing with bunny stickers, and
Good.
we're gonna send them to
Oh, good.
people who give us useful comments on our stream.
Yeah, I love that you have a mascot for that already,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Rachel's taking pairing with bunny pretty seriously. It's
which is
adorable.
great. I mean,
Yeah,
that's going to pay off.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So like, but like, and I've done something like this before. Okay. So let me back up. So like, I don't. Oh,
We need to
yes.
get Rachel to make us content. She could
Hmm.
do some how-tos.
Yes. Yes. It's good to have that beginner perspective.
Okay, that was an aside. Back
That
to
was inside.
your meetup.
Yeah. Like,
You want a hook
yeah. Like, so like, it's not. Let me back up. Like, I
other than
don't.
your hair?
I'm not. I'm not trying to get hired. I'm not trying to sell anything.
You're not trying to
Um,
get laid. That's
true.
important.
Um, yes, that's we're that not at tech conferences. Keep these worlds
Or
separated.
deaf meetups.
We're at dev meetups. Um, and um, and like um, what do I want to come out of this? I want to not come out of it feeling like, oh, I wasted, I wasted my time, or I could have made more connections if I had only figured out how, and I want to go away from it. I want to go away from it, with people feeling like they met somebody valuable in me, and not in a like a necessarily like a business sense, but
You
just like,
want
oh,
them
I'm really glad I met that guy. Um,
you want them you want to invite them to dance as a
yeah.
social interaction and as a technical um, skill enhancement, awareness enhancement kind of networking thing.
Yeah. And I'll share like one story of this.
Okay, okay,
I can't remember if I've shared this story with you before.
okay.
Have I told you the what would Lady Gaga do story?
I don't remember. Tell it again.
Okay. Yes. And yeah, for the sake of the fact that we're recording this for posterity too, I will tell it again. So, once upon a time, when I was somewhat known in the Ruby community, but not quite as much as I am now, I was it was the very beginning of RailsConf, which was happened to be in a city near me at the time. And I discovered that my job had disintegrated the day before
Oh,
RailsConf.
yeah, this is a good story.
Yeah. I was like at the Ignite event the night before RailsConf started in Baltimore, and I discovered that my job had just vanished. It was a consulting, like a consulting federation gig, and I was like, hey, crap, what am I going to do? And I didn't want to just like wander the halls, buttonholing people asking for a job. I wanted to do something more generative than that.
Mm.
Something that was less about like get me a job, more about like put something new, valuable into the world, and a job will fall out.
That's an oblique quest
Yes, an oblique approach.
that happens to also get you a job.
Right. I feel like I sort of had an intuitive understanding of obliqueness even back then, but like I didn't really have the word for it. Yeah.
For the record, there's a book called Obliquity that
It's
explains this really well, and it's quite short.
I think I actually bought it on after you mentioned it last time. I think I bought it on Audible. I at least added it to my queue, but I think I bought it.
It's good. It's good.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I like that it's short. Short is good. Some
Yeah.
ideas need to be like they need to be handled
Yeah.
with brevity.
The shorter a piece of information, the more valuable it is,
Yes.
because the more people it can transfer to.
Hence my format on Ruby Tapas.
Shortness is a form of accessibility.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Brevity is accessibility. There, that's a new phrase. We could tweet that.
And it has brevity itself, so that's good.
Okay, now I'm definitely tweeting
it. Yeah. Okay, so I will keep telling the story. So I decided to like haul out this idea that I'd been batting around but hadn't like gone anywhere with, and which was to to create a podcast, and specifically to create a podcast about remote work. And so I did what is to this day probably like the longest night of work of my life, and like got the domain up, got some hosting up, and got a voice recorder, like a little portable cheapo voice recorder from Radio Shack, and a microphone. And then I was like, I need more of a hook. And I was listening to a lot of Lady Gaga at the time. I was like, what would Lady Gaga do? And the answer was glue a lot of phones to a hat. So I had this old hard hat that somebody had given me, and I painted it blue, and
So
I
you were
like
at
found,
home.
yeah, I was at home.
Okay, good. Because I've been picturing you at RailsConf, like in a hotel room, and I'm like, where did you get a hard hat and old phones
That would have been
and blue
particularly amazing.
paint? Okay.
No, I was at home because this was actually like it was close enough to me I could drive to.
All right.
And so yeah, and I had all these like, because I'm a tiny bit of a hoarder when it comes to technology. Like I had all these old phones that I chucked in like the phone bin, labeled as like phones, and
Things we
because
didn't
I'm
have
like
as children.
because I'm a Jamie Heineman at heart. And yeah, so like I hauled those out. I was like, I'm never going to use these again anyway. So I just like glued them to the hard hat because I wanted to. It was like it was the most accessible thing I could think of to vaguely relate to remote work, because it's like communications and shit. So and I had them. So yeah, I did that and like put a little like label on the front, like a little logo on the front of the hat with all these phones glued to it, and roamed around RailsConf with a silly hat and a microphone, and interviewed people for my podcast that didn't exist yet. And like, yeah, like that's a hook. And like, I have to shut my phone up.
Sorry, I've been texting you on Slack.
Oh. Who's this person that keeps bugging me?
I just thought of something and it's not related. So
yeah, and like stickers are a hook. I love the hooks that establish a connection. you know, and I love that about podcasting because like, you know, there are a lot of people that like, that was my first interaction with them. And then I've interacted with many, many times since then. You know, I love things that establish that kind of connection. And it just made me feel like the whole time I spent there was so constructive. Like it was never just like me trying to figure out how to start a conversation. It was just like super, super constructive.
Right. Now that's pretty extreme.
It's pretty extreme. Like it doesn't always have to be that.
Wonderful.
Like at this event,
Wonderful.
at this Knoxville thing, I don't want to center myself that much.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would be slightly rude.
Sometimes is I just carry around my tiny notebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I ask people like, who are you? Where do you work? What are you good at? And maybe what's your email or your Twitter handle? And there's something about like taking notes on a conversation that makes people feel important.
Yeah, that's a good point. Taking notes. I'm terrible at taking notes. I'm very slow.
It has to be a physical notebook. It can't be your phone.
Right. Yeah. I write very slowly though. I don't know if that would work for me, but that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah. You also have the selfie thing that you do.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about like, I want to structure that a little bit more. Like, I don't know if I want to be like, walk up to people and say, can I get a selfie? But like, if there was a hook around that.
Could you write an article about the Knoxville deaf community and what's going on there?
Oh, that's a good one.
You can interview people for that. Sometimes I do that. I never get around to writing the article. But I think about it and I get to know some people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not very good at getting around to writing the article though. but it's yeah.
How would you start that conversation?
Well, I always start conversations with, "Hi, I'm Jessica. What's your name?" Nice. And my trick with that is just to look at who is standing around looking like they wish someone would talk to them. Mm-hmm. And this is where being a woman comes in really handy, because if those people are women, they're often more comfortable with a woman coming up to talk to them. And if those people are men, they are happy that a woman came up and talked to them. Right. So it works either way. But you have you have the hair, so I'll be happy with you too. Now, if only you played music.
If only I played music.
Yeah. And I ask them what they do. And then, I mean, if it's at all relevant to what I'm talking about or what I'm thinking about writing an article, then I say, ooh, and just get excited, you know? Mm-hmm. And you're good at that too.
That's true.
Very good at that. And people love that, you know, they love it. If you're actually interested in what they're doing, it doesn't really take more than that. Mm-hmm. I mean, some people don't want to talk about it. That's fine. I don't need to talk to everybody. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other thing that's important to me is to be okay with being awkward. Mm-hmm. Because it's going to be awkward and I just laugh at myself and it's fine. And I have the theory that if I'm being awkward, then other people will feel more comfortable and not so worried about being awkward themselves. Because I'm going to be more awkward than they are. Mm-hmm. Let me just set the bar really low here. So anytime I like spill stuff on myself or trip or whatever, you know, I can spin it positively. This is fine. I just made all of you feel good about yourselves.
Okay, so trip. Got it.
Yeah, I like trip over cords and stuff. Yeah, it happens. It's fine. It's fine. I don't die.
Yeah. Like I'm for some reason now I'm envisioning some kind of like, you know, because I'm like so terrible at writing, I'm envisioning some kind of like scrapbook thing where like, you know, what is that thing that kids in actual schools do? I missed out, where they like, don't they like have other kids write in a book of theirs or something?
Oh, like yearbooks?
Is that a thing? I don't even know.
They do have them now, but my kids are like, why would I want that?
Right.
It's in paper. Yeah, sign my yearbook. That's a thing.
Like, oh man, what would be a good question? It's like, please, like, give me your name, your email, and like the answer to the question.
Well, tabs or spaces. What's one tool or language you will never use again?
I like this. Yeah, this is. I like how these are like more.
I mean, I'm going for negativity here, but that sometimes gets
But they're
people
like
riled
laughing.
up, which can be a positive.
Like, yeah, because like the first stuff that sprang to my mind was like really banal. Like, what's the technology that you're interested in right now, and like
No, pick
the
stuff
stuff
that
you're talking.
people get pissed about.
Yeah, yeah, you want something. Well, and that they laugh about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 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 and can argue about.
I like that. I
But
like
it's not important.
right. I like the
It's not like politics. Nobody's gonna die because you never want to use VI again.
Right. Nobody's gonna take a swing at me.
Yeah. 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 So raise controversy, but not the kind that matters.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I honestly don't know how much of my success with this is being female and being cute enough. I do feel like at conferences that is a big advantage for me because I am like extra social. So like the things that make it harder for women to be social don't affect me. Or at least not enough to be a problem. And meanwhile, I do get some advantages just for standing out.
Yeah.
Woman.
I've also thought about sorry. Yeah. That's
your height helps. You're not super tall.
So I'm like not intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that helps.
Okay, so
that's another part of like being a woman. I can be super passionate about something and people are fine with like, yeah, that's cute, Jess. If they disagree with me.
Oh, interesting.
It doesn't feel like I'm as much like I'm bad about talking over people.
Yeah. There's absolutely there is a dynamic that crops up in tech circles, especially like I think at a certain level of tech circles where okay, let me do it as a contrast. Like when I hang out with like really really experienced speakers that have been doing this stuff for a long time, they tend to be people that are so sort of like used to what they do and so confident in what they do that that they don't actually feel any. They don't seem to. Most of them don't seem to feel like they need to assert themselves or be right about things. Like they can be very easygoing about. Oh yeah, that's an interesting perspective. Even if it's like the diametric opposite of what they just spoke about or something. But then there's like my experience, when you're sort of newer as a developer, there's a lot more. There's a dynamic in the industry of one feeling like you need to prove yourself, feeling like you need to assert your sort of position in like the arguments of the day, like yes JavaScript, no JavaScript, TDD, not TDD, whatever it is, and so there's more of a,
that's true.
and it's nice when you can find ways to route around that to sort of diffuse that, I think, rather than playing into it. Also, I think it's totally a dude thing. And
right.
And a dudes in this culture thing, and and so it comes up because these events are so saturated with dudes.
Okay. I don't know if I've told you about this before, but I told you need to read that book, Finite and Infinite Games.
Yes.
And I'm just going to give you a spoiler of the part that I particularly want you to have read. He talks about when you're playing the infinite game, when you're not in it to win in short term, when you're trying to be generative,
Mm-hmm.
And in the infinite game, the way you win is by continuing to play, and the way you win is by getting more and more players, right? By growing the game, by bringing everyone into it, and everyone wins together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when you're in that mode and you talk, he says you speak from your genius.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone has their genius inside.
It's
It's
like a
like you're
Greek
creative.
philosophical concept.
Okay. Yeah, it's like a creative
Mm-hmm.
being in your center, and when you speak from your genius and then someone else listens with theirs, the listening is also an act of creation,
Mm-hmm.
because the words come in and they mean something new to the other person. And so I think about that a lot, and I try to more often speak from my genius, to say something I've never said before.
Mm.
I mean, not for the sake of saying something I've never said before, but because if you repeat something, you are not speaking from your genius. You're speaking from a recording.
So not talking points.
Yeah, yeah. And so you hang out with someone like Kent Beck,
Mm-hmm.
who does not need to prove himself, who does not need to get his talking points across.
Mm-hmm.
And even if he does, he's going to do it in a way he never has before,
Mm-hmm.
because he's experimenting with that.
Right.
So he is always speaking from his genius.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can. Yeah.
And you learn something. We go to his talks multiple times because they're never the same, because it's and I do this with my talks. I don't want them to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm going to repeat the jokes that worked, but some of them. But there's some spark in it every time. But much more so in conversation. When there's a level of speaker who has a set of rants and will repeat them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's no fun. And they are confident. It's not that they need to prove themselves. It's just that they have this set of pieces of information that they're going to put out in the world at every opportunity, and you can tell.
Yeah.
And
like I remember being at that
that's what I
point.
don't want to be.
There's this. Yeah. I mean, I think as a speaker, I
Mm-hmm.
remember being at a point where like I didn't feel like I had a lot of interesting ideas. Like I had, I had enough. I hadn't been. I hadn't, sort of intermixed with enough people with other interesting ideas to be really, generating that many interesting ideas of my own. And so like, there was that point where I felt like I only have like the one, the one elevator pitch or something.
Huh.
The one thesis.
That would be boring.
Yeah. I feel like I see a lot of people at least going through that stage. And I think maybe some people don't realize that there's a stage beyond it. Of like, I have like this one idea and I'm going to keep hammering on it because, gosh darn it, this one's mine. And I have a lot of sympathy for that.
Yeah. And if you have like one thing that you're building that you're passionate about, great.
Yeah.
But you've got to like keep growing it, and you grow it by interacting with other people. Like you said yesterday, you grow it by finding the reality between yours and theirs.
Yeah. Worlds grow in between people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to read what you said. Hold on.
You have to do
The
like
part that I loved. There's a place inside where we all stand alone. It's not about finding someone to join you. It's about joining with others and building worlds in the connections.
Yeah, that. And like, I didn't used to have as much opportunity to do that as I do now.
Sorry, weird face because your mic just got weird. That was just a sound that I remembered.
Okay. Do I need to repeat that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much. There's so much there. Right. So to bring that back to what we were talking about, in the end, you can have an opener, but I think it was Barbara Walters said a long time ago, one of my defining quotes, um, it's not about the questions you ask, it's about listening to the answers.
Mm-hmm.
And listening with your genius and letting that spark something in you. And it's about, for me, it's about falling in love with that person for a few minutes.
Yes.
And just wanting to see their world.
Yes.
And I love that in bars, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It works well, especially airport bars. That's fun.
I think this
Loves to
event is
laugh.
actually going to be at a bar.
That can help. Yeah, in airport bars, I look for opportunities to ask people about their divorce, because divorce is never a pretty story.
Mm-hmm.
It's always a real story.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people will talk about it like they mean it.
Yeah.
And then I have to figure out whether to say I'm sorry or congratulations or both.
Yeah, it's usually a mix of that.
Yeah.
With divorces.
Yeah, that's divorce. Strangely, is always been one of my favorite topics to hear about. At least ever since I got married. And gained like some understanding of it. Which was 15 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
16. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. You know, one thing I'm thinking about, like coming back around to the hooks ideas, is I kind of do want to haul out my voice recorder again. I have a nicer one now. Not that matters, but
Why not? Yeah, carry it with you.
and like kind of putting some of those ideas together. Like I wanted to do something podcasty, but that was nowhere near like the "can I take you aside for a 20-minute interview" kind of thing that I was talking about, like
Right.
that old story.
No.
And I was thinking about like with
Oh,
what you were
make a
saying.
commercial. I
That's
love
interesting.
commercials. Commercials are awesome. Commercials are like 2 minutes and they're super intense, right?
Oh,
So
interesting.
say, I want to make a commercial about the Knoxville deaf community.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about some technology that you like, or something interesting that you're doing. Talk about something
I was thinking about collecting rants.
Oh, fun.
I was thinking about like, give me your developer rant.
Yeah, what needs to change in development today?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Or at your work, if
Mm-hmm.
you're not afraid to talk about it in your real voice, or you can anonymize those too.
Right.
If you just write them down. Yeah, you mentioned you're slow at taking notes, so the voice recorder is probably a better idea.
Yeah. I'm trying to like play to my strengths here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And some people are shy about recording, and but that's okay. You don't have to. You can be like, well, just tell me your rant then. Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that. Voice recorder, get their rants. And then be sure to get their email.
right.
Because if you put it into like a little commercial for the Knoxville deaf community, which you have the capability of doing,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll need to email them and ask them permission,
Right.
and you want their email.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I definitely wanted to collect some kind of contact info.
Yeah.
For all these people, because I mean, ultimately what I want to come out of this is something that I don't know what it is, because I want something serendipitous to fall out of this. But if I were to try to make it more concrete, it would be I don't know, that I have lunch with some of these people later on. Or
that is an excellent incremental goal. That's like the next island that you can see across the sea in your quest for
serendipity.
putting soul in software.
Yes.
In Knoxville, in this case.
Yeah.
This is a symbol for the star in the quest.
Oh, okay.
I just made that up.
Okay.
It's a plus.
That doesn't
right?
work.
I'm making a star and putting
Nice.
it in the distance, because it's like on the horizon. You're never actually going to reach it, but going toward it takes you in useful directions.
Right. Yeah, you need something
That's the oblique goal.
aim towards, even though you're not going to get there.
Something multi-generational.
Yes. Yeah.
something bigger than ourselves in our own lives.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay.
I think we have some.
I think we answered.
I think I have some good ideas.
Cool.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.